folks here covering the team as well. With that, we'll send it to Coach.
Sure, appreciate it, Dustin, and as always, appreciate you guys for attending. Start off with our summer. I thought we had a really productive summer. The rest of the freshmen showed up here Father's Day that Sunday, came in, kind of assimilated with the returning players that had been here since June 1st and had high energy during our summer workouts. And for me, you know, this phase of our program is one that's really important, is that it should prepare us physically to be able to play a full season and give us the best chance to maintain our health throughout it. We also did a tremendous job in the community this summer. Our players got quite a bit of community service stuff done throughout the DMV area. This is the one time we get to shift our attention to 24/7 football. I just had our first meeting last night with our players, and each year we get about 30 days out of the year where our players can spend their entire time just focusing on football. We've got a couple guys with a few things to clean up academically here the next couple of days, but you know, our training camp for us is really a unique opportunity that we get each and every year, and for us it's important that we limit the distractions and take full advantage of these opportunities. With all the new people we have in our program, it's really important for us to continue to create that connectivity that we want to see and that we feel like we've been able to do. The players returned after a short break yesterday for our move-in. Our camp headquarters is over there at the hotel. Really businesslike. Our players, you can tell, are excited. The thing that led me to be able to declare that we're now ready to compete for Big Ten championships is just what I'm talking about, the players, and it'll be the point of emphasis. I like the way our locker room has come together, that player-driven culture that we've been pounding for the last 4 years. Really, I think you're starting to see the fruits of the hard work, not just by our staff, but with the players themselves in terms of taking ownership of this team. They seem very driven, very focused, and getting and creating the right kind of habits and behaviors that allow you to play championship level football. The players and coach in our program know what our expectations are. They know that the work has to supersede the goal, and we're not going to let a goal of wanting to compete for championships get in the way of the type of work and the amount of work it's going to take to do that. And so that's where all of our energy will be focused on. We'll learn more in the coming weeks as to who we are as we create and forge an identity as a football family for the 23 season. I'm excited about seeing just in terms of the players that are coming in. This now will give me a great idea of kind of who we will be and what type of identity we'll have. On offense, we've obviously returned on a lot of production. Our running back room, the tight end position, as well as the other positions on our team. I feel like offensively, the strength of our offense is the experience that we'll have with the young running backs that came in and played really well for us a year ago. And though we lost a lot of production in terms of an experience up front in the O-line, we feel like the portal has allowed us to maybe fill some of those gaps that have been created when you lose players to the NFL like we did a year ago. Our O-line, obviously, losing 2 guys to the draft and another one, Jahari Branch, who's actively on the roster, shows you that that's the one area that we've got to kind of see and make some decisions quickly as you go through our depth chart, because that competition there with the guys we brought in along with the returning guys makes that room, makes healthy competition really important in that room. On defense, I think we showed a great deal of improvement. The one thing that jumps out statistically for me is just how our guys were able to make the necessary adjustments from the first half to the second half. As you studied us on defense, our defense did a really good job coming out after the half and making the necessary adjustments. And Coach Williams and that defensive staff, again, like I said, showed tremendous improvement a year ago. Love the leadership and experience that's on that side of the ball, especially on the second level with 2 returning starters in Bo Braid and Dante Trader. And then you add guys like Avante Williams and Glenn Miller, who also we expect to help us as well as some of these young players that we'll bring in. But I'm really excited on that side of the ball because of the experience that we have returning. As I said, with the transfer portal, you've seen a bunch of guys come in, and for me, guys like Jordan Phillips and Corey Bullock and Mike Purcell and Marcus Dumerville, Jaquan Shepard, all these are names that I think you guys will get to know and really excited based on how they performed in the spring, as well as how quickly they've bought into the standard that we've set as a program, that we expect those guys to hit the ground running with us in an effort to help us prepare. Practice number 1 is later this afternoon. Really excited about getting a chance to get back on the grass, put our hands on these guys in terms of teaching, developing, coaching. As I told our coaches last night, you know, it's our job to take these players where they can't take themselves, and our players have really bought into the principle and philosophy that it's their team, and so it's our job now to get these guys mentally, physically ready to play a long season here in the Big Ten, and we're excited about this opportunity. With that, I'll open it up to whatever questions you guys may have.
Okay, let's start with Emmett here in the second row.
Emmett Siegel, Testudo Times. Coach, you've said now here and at Big Ten Media Day that you think now is the time to start competing for Big Ten championships, and you mentioned players as that difference, but more specifically, what is it specifically about the players that you have now that you think has allowed you to reach that goal, where now you have built the program to a point where you think it's time to start competing for championships as opposed to last year?
Well, I would say not just opposed to last year, but any of the last 4 years that I've been here. There's some necessary developmental process that you have to go through as a team, and I think sometimes when you come in as a new leader, whether it's as a football coach or in business, that you tend to maybe bite off a little more than you can chew initially. And I think for us, we always want to be honest and transparent with our team and with ourselves. And so for us, you know, it seems to me like a lot's been said about the declaration that now we're ready to compete for Big Ten championships. You know, for the last 3-4 years, I've had a ton of players come to me and say, Coach, we want to talk about championships. And I said, man, until we can worry about taking care of the things we can control, we can't talk about championships. Well, the player-driven culture that we've been trying to instill, I think now has shown itself to me. It's shown itself by how they've prepared going into the spring, when we've had a lot of different moving parts with the portal, guys going in and guys coming out. I saw our team take the new guys in our program and kind of say, this is how we do things around here, and either you do it this way or you're not going to be around here. And to me, that's when you start seeing that type of leadership in the locker room. The football part will be easy. We got great coaching staff that will get these guys in the best possible positions to make plays. But what we need to see to compete for championships is the right kind of habits and behaviors. And those are the things that lead me to say what we said at the Big Ten Media Day.
Second row right, Dave.
Dave Preston, WTOP Radio in
What's
Washington.
up, Dave?
Hey, good to see you, Mike. Tully is back. It's rare in college football where you have somebody with so much experience back these days. What's it like for you as a coach to be able to work with someone, and it's almost as though instead of 100, 300 classes, you guys are working on all different things, and what expectations do you have for Tully this fall?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you have the most experienced quarterback coming back in a league like ours, it speaks volumes. Speaks volumes to the type of player I know he is, and people that are in our building know and understand Talia to be. To be able to have a guy, I mean, this system, I mean, he was raised in it, from the time, before he got here at Alabama, very similar system, terminology, and to get here and to see how each year he's grown in that role as a leader, that to me is the secret sauce for him, because this guy has the ability to have a positive impact on others, and I've seen him really take that next step, whether it be this summer in terms of how he's kind of been out in front and demanding that guys hold up to the standards that we set. To me, when you have that type of leadership from that position, it gives you hope that you'll have a chance to go out and hopefully play the way that he's capable of playing consistently.
To your left, second row. Gene.
Gene Wong, Washington Post. Hey, Mike, you mentioned the portal. You were able to get a couple of big playmakers at wide receiver out of there, in addition to the guys you had coming back. Kind of what do you see out of that room as you reload at that position this year?
Yeah, the addition of guys like Caden Prather and Tyrese Chambers, one, the type of kids they are, and I use the term kids, they're young men, the type of young men that they are from a character standpoint. As I've said before, when we go into the portal and bring a guy in, it's really important for me that we know who we're bringing in and what we're getting. And with both those guys, especially Caden, because I was actively involved in his recruiting process, I knew the type of person he was, and I've been really happy with what he's done. He's kind of come in and, let the older guys that know the system help lead. I know Ja'Shawn Jones has played a tremendous role in that receiver room and kind of being the enforcer of our standard. And both those guys have come in and have worked their tails off, have assimilated, even has taken on some leadership roles. I think Tyrese has a natural ability as a leader because everything he's gotten, he's had to earn and work for. And those are the types of stories that when he talks to the younger players in that room, that's where I see his leadership showing up. But a really talented room, a lot of unknowns, but I say eerily similar to what the running back room looked like a year ago. I think we'll be pleasantly surprised with the production we'll get, especially out of the two newcomers.
Fourth row center, George.
Hey, Mike, George.
What's up, George?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
You bring in Josh Gaddis and Kevin Sumlin to the staff in the offseason. Makes you guys one of the most experienced staffs in the country in terms of just head coaching and years in college football. I'm curious why the move to do that. What was important to you to bring those guys in, and in terms of distribution on the field, who gets say in what? Do you still have some say in what you want to do on offense and how that kind of distribution balance of powers can go?
You want to know what's going on behind the scenes, huh?
Just a touch.
Got it. Well, one, very intentional with the hiring process. As you guys know, the last few years we've been very fortunate that when you have success, you lose good coaches, and the coaches that have left here played integral roles in helping us to where this foundation is set the way it is. The addition of guys like Summy and Josh, you guys leave off Latrell Scott, and here's one of the veteran guys who I think took Richmond to the 1AA National Championship or FCS National Championship game as a young coach. Did a tremendous job at East Carolina, and then you throw in, Zach Spavital and Zach's experience as a young coach at Oklahoma, Houston. We had some really close games a year ago that I think the experience that these guys bring will help, because coming in with a lot of first-time Division I coaches that we've had, they brought energy, they brought juice, they brought the recruiting part of it. Well, the next step for us, if we want to compete for championships, is figuring out how to game plan to win close games against the better teams in our conference. And when you look at what Josh has done at Michigan, and Kevin has done in his career, these are two veteran guys that have been in these big games and have game planned for them. And I think the experience hopefully will lend itself to where we find ways, instead of close wins, we find ways to win close games.
Our next two on the left, Ed and Sam.
Ed Lee with the Baltimore Sun. Mike,
Hey, Ed.
going back to the declaration, how do you challenge the traditional teams like Ohio State and Penn State? And then with the declaration, were you ever worried about it putting a spotlight on the guys?
I think the way you challenge those teams is you get your players to play well. Most of the things, and if you followed us over the years, we very rarely worry about the opponent, because it's more what we do than it is what they do, and it's more how we do it, and hopefully we do it a little better than our opponents, and that's what gives you a chance to win. As far as the spotlight, I mean, we're not shying away from it, because the only expectation that really matters to us, and I mean this with all honesty, is the expectation we have in that building, the Jones Hill House. And I can tell you, there's nobody in there that's afraid of declaring that now is the time for Maryland to become a team that competes for Big Ten championships. It's part of our DNA in terms of, we're going to go fight for everything we get. We know that it won't be given to us, and we've got a bunch of guys in that locker room over there that really feel strongly about now is our time to do the things and create the habits and behaviors to be a championship level program.
Cohen, Baltimore Sun. How's it
Sam,
going, Mike?
what's up?
You mentioned the running back room. When I asked about Roman Hemby specifically, what do you feel like is the next step for him, and how important do you feel like he is to what you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, Roman, I think, and with all of our players, we evaluate them at the end of the year. And if there's a couple of areas in Roman's game that I think he'll be the first to tell you that we want to see, is the one-on-one miss, making the last guy miss, because there were a couple runs where, it's one guy left to the defense, and we can't block all 11 if you're carrying it. So one guy you're responsible for, And I know Coach Scott has really worked hard with Roman to that third level, second level winning in space. And Roman is the type of guy that when you tell him he needs to improve on something, he's going to do the work. Smart, tough, reliable. Our expectation is for us to build on the type of season he had a year ago. The thing I think that's really shown itself for Roman is his leadership. Not a big talker, but the people in that locker room respect his work ethic, and when he talks, people listen.
Second row right, Matt.
I'm a inside the black and gold.
Hey,
Coach,
man.
good to see you.
Good to see
You touched about the defensive line and obviously the addition of Jordan Phillips, but having to replace all three starters, and you had Trey Colbert, another guy, Tyzay Johnson, Tommy Kingbasote, but those guys coming back. So just with just replacing those pieces, I guess what's your going into camp? What's your feel for the defensive line unit?
Yeah, the best thing about that, and if you've tracked this, which I know you do a tremendous job of following us, is we rotated a bunch of players a year ago. I mean, guys like Tommy Kingbasote was similar to a starter in terms of how much he played. Taze played a ton of reps the last couple of years. Bringing in the Trey Colbert, the Jordan Phillips, help us with that void, but Coach Williams has done a great job of keeping guys fresh and, guys and names that you don't hear of, like the Isaac Bunions of the world, that Christian Teagues of the world. We had Greg Rose a year ago that just pop up. The way we play defense, we have the bodies. I think you'll see some of these young players like Dylan Fontes, who came in the spring, early grad. You'll see his development kind of expedite itself because of the size and strength that he comes in with, and being in our weight room. Guys like Jordan Phillips, guys like Dylan Fontes have benefited from being here early.
We're going to go to middle, third row, Noah.
Hey, Coach, I'm Noah Trister with AP.
What's up, Noah?
Just a question, a couple off-season issues that have come up at other schools. One is the Northwestern situation with hazing. The other has been at places with kids getting suspended for gambling offenses. Do you address either of those things with your team to sort of reinforce what is and isn't acceptable, I guess, in this day and age?
Yeah, we're actually going through it as we speak. We have a player policy manual that every summer during training camp and our team meeting in the evening, we go through these things. As I've told you guys before, this is a lot like raising kids, and so for you guys that have raised kids, you know that you can say it until you're blue in the face, but you got to keep saying it. And so every year we address it. I think the spotlight is on it because of some of the things that have happened around the country here this summer. What you're starting to see is something that we've understood a long time, is that players have voices now, and these voices will be heard one way or the other. And so what we try to do is create a family environment that, how many people have hazed people in their family? I mean, it's not what you do. And so when you create a family environment, we're not saying we're better than anybody, but we're going to address it. We'll continue to educate our players on the right way. When we talk about development, it's not just as a football player, as a student, it's as a person as well. And we've got some programs that we've utilized during this time of year to help reinforce those principles and values that we want.
Could you hand it to Sam in front of you? Second row.
Taylor Lyons, the Diamondback. You mentioned earlier the offensive line replacing so much from last year, that turnover there. Just what's that challenge been like for you, just trying to find the 5 best guys, and just what have you seen out of them, and what are you expecting out of that unit this season?
Yeah, the challenge was the recruiting piece, because we know when you lose guys that have been 3-4 year starters, Spencer Anderson and Jalen Duncan, as well as Jahari, were 3-year starters, 4-year starters for us. And we were really intentional with how we went and attacked the portal. When you recruit offensive linemen, we recruit with the mindset that it takes 2 years, 2.5 years for them to fully develop and be ready to compete, especially in a league like the Big Ten. And so we feel like the experience that we will get out of a guy like Gotti, guys like Corey Bullock, Mike Purcell, Marcus Dumerville, those experiences that they're bringing to the table, and what having him, most of them here this spring, really has helped us kind of start to shape some things. Now, the next 30 days will be important to find the best 5 and put them in the best possible position, while developing the younger players in our programs, like the Andre Roys, like the Kyle Longs, that Connor Fagan, a walk-on who's really elevated himself to create the depth that we're going to need to play good football.
Front row, center, Wayne.
Wayne Viner, Terp Talk.
Hey Wayne, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well.
Great.
It's great to be back for football season. You've talked at length about how much of a Terp fan you've been and what that team looked like. And you look at the team photo today, and your team looks like the Terrapins again with the red jersey and the white pants. What's it mean to you to have that Terps logo back on that helmet?
You know, Terp script is something, as I said before, and you know, I grew up on Terp script. When you think of the mid-'80s teams that had great success here, and that was right during my adolescent years where I was coming over and rooting for the Terps. It's what I've come to know is winning football. When we wore Terp script, we had great success. I was here with Coach Friedgen when he reintroduced it back to the program in the early 2000s. So I'm hoping that we can take some from what those mid-'80s teams did and those Coach Friedgen teams in the early 2000s and wear it with pride and play with the type of pride that the people who wore it before them did when they had some success here consistently.
We'll go back to Emmett. If anybody else has any questions after Emmett, we have about 5 more minutes.
Brandon Schwartzberg, Diamondback. So,
Sorry.
Coach,
How you doing, buddy?
good, how are you?
Good.
Coach, you mentioned the defensive line changes and then also in the secondary losing Banks and Bennett to the NFL. But you're going to have Jay Sean and Ruben back at linebacker. How impactful is it to kind of have those quarterbacks back in the middle of that defense?
Yeah, and you need to have Fanaje Gote. Fanaje's been a guy that he's coming back with the COVID year, very similar to Jay Sean Jones, that his experience and the playmaking ability that we've had at that level. You throw in a true freshman, All-American, and Jay Sean Barham. Ruben Hippolyte's been playing football since he stepped on campus here for us, minus the injuries in which he's had to deal with. That room to me is the kind of the glue between the back end and the front end. And you know, I know Coach Thompson and Coach JT are doing a tremendous job with the outside guys and the inside guys of bringing them along really fast. And it's going to be important, especially for some of the designated pass rushing guys on the outside. But the interior linebacker group is a group that shows tremendous leadership, while also has had a lot of production over the years.
In the back on your right, Gary.
Mike, good to see you.
Good.
Gary Stein, PressBoxOnline.com. It's hard to believe this is your 5th year, and you've had a lot thrown at you in the last 5 years. You've had COVID and NIL, portal, etc. When you look back, and I'm sure you did this in the offseason, you probably had a 1-year plan, a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan. Are you satisfied? Where are you right now in terms of planning?
You know what? I came in with a 5-year plan, and part of that was to establish a culture and a foundation that would allow us to compete for Big Ten championships and realistically be able to compete. So I'd say we're right on schedule. You know, the COVID year kind of throws a wrench into some things in terms of the development piece that we've tried to expedite with how we practice. But there's no doubt I feel like we're a program that's on track with where I wanted us to be in year 5. But you know what? It sounds good in the room, air-conditioned room on August 1st or whatever, August 2nd now, I guess. But the next 30 days we'll get a chance to see.
Now we'll go to Emmett, second row.
We saw what a weapon special teams could be for you guys last year with Chad Ryland. Do you have any insight, you know, I know it's obviously we're just starting fall camp, but into who maybe will step into that starting kicker role and maybe what, you know, the return game could look like for you?
Yeah, I think one, from a kicking standpoint, Colton Spangler is a guy that we had a lot of respect for. You know, he shared the position for 2 years. Last year kind of took it over full time, even though we used Pecorella in some areas where he was great at pinning people down in there. But really excited about having a veteran punter like Colton, and then his athleticism. You know, that's the one thing, you know, when you got an athlete at that position, and I don't feel like we've maybe done enough of attacking people in the special teams game in terms of fakes and things, but a former athlete, receiver, quarterback type guy, but he's really done a nice job punting. Jack Howes is the guy coming out of the clubhouse. We feel It's his job to lose. We brought in some veteran guys to kind of push and compete at the position, but I've been really pleased with Jack, and I think the best thing about having Jack around a year ago was seeing the type of kicker Chad Ryland was and his approach and the things he did, and so excited about also just seeing Jack go out and the confidence that comes along with being a kicker. The return game, because of our skill, I love the guys that we got returning punts and kicks. I'd like to see that really become a big weapon for us, and it's an area where, because of the type of skill we have, should be successful for us.
All right, thank you, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
We're going to immediately have Coach